I'm here with Paul Dye, the owner of the Cabaret, Pensacola's #1 gay bar. Paul, have you lived in Pensacola your whole life?
No, I'm originally from Central Kentucky
When did you move here?
in '05.
Why? What drew you to the area?
I've got family in the middle part of the Panhandle, and I come down to kind of be a little bit closer to them. And it's just time to get out of Kentucky. You know,
So you chose Pensacola?
I chose Florida. I was able to take a lateral move with a company that I worked for at the time.
How did you first become involved in Pensacola's LGBTQ scene?
Probably in the late '90s with Memorial Day weekend. Let's say I come down here on the beach and it's hard to not fall in love with the sand. And so it was probably about then.
Can you describe what it was like then when you first entered the scene compared to now?
It was kind of like different elements. I was in the learning phase and enjoying the work that all the people prior to myself had done. And kind of you get in and you acknowledge like what organizations are around, what benefits are there. You develop the who's who in town. Compared to today, I honestly think even with a more conservative feel, I think Pensacola is much more progressive than it was. I think it's evolved. The city itself has evolved.
Do you still enjoy the Memorial Beach Day weekends?
I don't get to do that anymore. I have to work.
Oh no!
I was going to say now we're part of the providers as a part of the people who get to go out and enjoy it.
Now you're working to help the other
Help
people.
the others, yeah.
Yeah. What inspired you to open the Cabaret in 2009?
Back in the early 2000s and all, and part of the move from Kentucky is your employment was kind of unstable at a lot of times based on personal lives, which could be a big issue. I had lost my job, so I come down and I started looking at businesses and pay scales in the area. Going into business for yourself was much better than what my history was. The Cabaret was for sale, and God loved the internet. I just happened to be in a chat room and it come available and come in and looked at it. It's just like the lights above you kick on and it's like, this is the plan for me. I've got something I can offer. I have experiences from Kentucky and Louisville and things like that I could bring to the city. I have working history and contacts as well that we could bring to the city and expand it.
How has the Cabaret's role in the community shifted over the years?
I've gone from probably more along the lines of I've gone from just a local watering hole to we donate to a multitude of charitable organizations in town, not just LGBT oriented. We've been part of like the Stamp Film Festival for 10 years. Sunday's Child has come about. We've been part of that. Gulf Coast Kids House, we donate to it. We do a toy drive for it every Christmas. One of the big things is kids come in and they need like guidance. They need some answers. If it's nothing more than someone better to talk to, or can you point me in a different direction? That's kind of always been a staple. I also started out not as like a live music venue, and with the opening closure of other businesses in town, I've become more of a drag-oriented establishment. RuPaul's kind of made that like a mainstream aspect in itself. So the business model, what it once started out as well, has also, it's shifted with the times too, based on the community needs, people who have lost their jobs in the process with businesses closing, and they continue their livelihoods as well.
Yeah, you guys are really known for your drag shows. I've heard so much. I will. Do you consider the Cabaret to be more entertainment than just a bar?
Very much so. Very much so. People come in and they're continually expecting an event, and we have them 7 days a week. We have some kind of event every day. That's the biggest draw that people enjoy.
The entertainment is a key part of the scene, I would say. The drag shows and everything like that. How would you describe what you're doing here? Because you're supplying the shows, like you said, weekly, what would be the role of the shows, I guess, in the community?
I mean, it's a definite avenue for people to unapologetically provide, a freedom of their expression. whether it be in drag or if they want to come in, sing, belt out a song, or just, sit and enjoy a good vibe, just it's like you come in and it's like a weight ripped off your chest. I don't know, and maybe it's, kind of be not right. Somebody come in and says, I had a bad time. I don't know anybody who come in and just hasn't said, it wasn't fun. They didn't have fun. They didn't laugh. They didn't have some just kind of like lifted freedom. It's not just people 21, 22, 23. I've got folks that are 65, 70, 72 that come in here. And they say the same thing. It's like, this is just, this is amazing. So it's not just isolated to one age specific group.
Is it cool to kind of see everyone become like a melting pot?
It is, and it's cool to see the different generations just kind of sit and talk to each other at the same time and understand what each 10-year gap is going through or has gone through at some point in time. It's also amazing to hear some of the people come in and tell me how Pensacola used to have 13 bars that people could choose to go to, and times have changed as well. And it's isolated down to 13 little places to 3 or 4 medium-sized to larger establishments.
Is there an achievement you're most proud of from your time supporting the LGBTQ culture in Pensacola?
Being around for 18 years is probably one of the biggest ones. But I guess it's more a material achievement. No, I think the biggest thing is the kids that come in who just need some kind of guidance, whether it be their parents haven't approved and removed them from the home, or they don't know how to answer them, or they guided them to here. That's probably the biggest achievement.
You were talking about history and how it kind of starts to repeat itself a little bit earlier. Do you notice any conversations that you have with kids where you're like, oh, that was me like 20 years ago, like you're literally in my shoes?
All of them. If you take the adjectives out of people and people's problems, we all have very similar ones. The answers aren't always the same, but the guidance and the places that you can go to get help are.
Would you consider drag to be just purely entertainment, or do you think it carries a broader cultural and political message? And how would you explain its significance to the people that may not understand it?
People come in and the first thing they see and that they view is drag this entertainment. This is my entertainment tonight. But it's almost like any theater aspect. There is some kind of political connection or personal entertainment, some kind of emotion that you have to tap into to create the interest and to create the ongoing. Comedians, they pick on themselves and they pick on the government, they pick on anything that's going on, and if you laugh, you can relate, it's like, oh yeah, this is going on in my life. Drag's always taking some kind of challenge. They kind of challenge life at times. I think Nina West probably said it best in one of her interviews, is like, it's an element of hope. People come in and they see this expressionism and it provides them hope, and they provide an element of hope as well.
I'm really glad that they brought light to the protesters and things like that.
With it being a sold out show, it's kind of like a pride event. Those are 1,600 voters. The chances are 80% of those were residents of Pensacola, as opposed to the people that were protesting that didn't have to be.
Did any of the protests recently affect the Cabaret's business in any way?
Going into it, there was an abstinence from people who came in prior to, but then they realized the farther along that it got, and that the city stance of you're violating your First Amendment rights, people come in and they realize we need to stand up for. There was a period when it was kind of like it was down, but it was also the holidays. So people kind of stay home and they do the family things during that time. So I guess long and short of it, I'd have to say no, other than benefit it.
Yeah, I'm just glad there was no protesters outside your door.
We did go to some great extents to make sure that it stayed on pallet box. I worked with some of the neighboring businesses, and we all just kind of said, we're not going to take a stance, we're not going to make a decision, or one way or other, our issue is public safety, and that was our goal. We all worked together, and I was amazed with the area and my business neighbors on how well we do appreciate each other.
As an attendee of the show, what were you feeling when the Queens walked on stage, knowing the protesters were outside and all the controversy surrounding the show?
I forgot they were even outside. It was like whatever is happening outside these doors is non-existent. When I took a break and I went out, I wanted to be nosy. It's like driving by a car crash. So I like to see who's out there. But when the show started, it was just like, this is the freedom that people feel. And you block out your bad days, you block out, whatever's gone on, and you enjoy what you go to a show for. And it doesn't really matter if it was a drag show or if it was Wicked or Cats or the Nutcracker or anything like that. It's just like, you go, you paid for a show, and that's your escape. If theater is your escape, theater is your escape.
You were just purely excited.
It was,
Good. I'm glad.
And, and we were amongst friends and, like-minded people. They were all there. And again, that was another thing. You turn around, you look at the crowd, and there was not an age or a gender-specific crowd. It was everyone. And there were so many people that come in and says, I don't understand what the big scuttlebutt was over.
I know, I was really surprised to see all the different age groups and all the different genders, and that everyone was really there. We packed that theater, it was awesome. The Saenger holds about 1,600 seats and the show was sold out. What do you think that turnout says about Pensacola's community?
I feel that Pensacola as a whole has become a lot more progressive and liberal, and those were probably 1,600 actual residents of the town. We don't want other people to come into our city and tell us how to live our lives. No one within the city limits had an issue with the show. No one in the voting district of downtown or anything like that had an issue, because it's an entertainment. Entertainment and art comes in a multitude of forms, and we all want our diversity in what we can and can't see. I also feel like it was a support of, if you restrict one group's freedom of expression and rights, there is a huge snowball effect that would come into play, i.e. all of the parades that downtown has. It's a money generating event. Mardi Gras, that's coming in. It would have a huge impact on these things. And most people realize that. And it's just like, they support it. And they said, I didn't see a problem with it. And then they moved on. I have a feeling some people probably bought tickets just to go see what the argument was over, and realized again, what was the issue?
Yeah.
What were their problems?
Because at the end of the day, it is just art. They're doing their own hair, and they're making their clothings. They're coming up with the choreography.
They're going in. They're going in as a citizen. They go on stage as a professional. They go out as a citizen.
Were there any moments from that night that felt especially memorable or symbolic?
Nina's speech was very on point about the area and the time. I kind of like the little one-line sarcasms where the show was personalized. Can we do that here? I also felt it funny too that a lot of times that they were talking about that they were singing, like you watch the news reels afterwards, and that they were singing carols outside on Palafox, and I was like, well, that's odd, because we were doing that inside too.
As someone who's embedded in Pensacola's LGBTQ history, how did that night compare to any earlier moments of resistance that you've witnessed?
Going back to the Memorial Day being new to the LGBT scene, there were major protests then. I would have to say that one was, as far as the protesters themselves, it was less attended. It was less violent. I think everybody was more of a keyboard warrior, and there's a lot of misinterpretation of new laws and things that people come in that put some concerns in eyes of folks. But the old Memorial Day things, they used to line the streets. They would block cars. They'd throw nails in sand. There was a lot of more domestic terrorist tactics that people could do. This was much more peaceful. It was disappointing, because a lot of times, you think that the nation has moved on and the world itself has moved on from the late 90s and early 2000s and the tactics that people did. And it was almost, these things were kind of squashed and silenced for a long time. The whole LGBT culture and everything started becoming normal. There was more exposure, so there was less fear. People just started understanding everyone a little bit better. But then I started going to these city council meetings and the protests and everything, and it was just like it wasn't even political. It was going back to a backwoods church. You know, the whole meetings and everything were. That night, to me, it was calm. It could have been a lot worse, and you plan for the worst. Again, for public safety and all, you kind of have to go with what can happen versus what did and what will.
It's crazy, nails in the sand.
Yeah, that was one of the things.
That's insane. That's actually terrorism. Holy cow. How can residents that aren't a part of the LGBTQ community be better allies right now?
Given the change, I mean, they don't have to be a super woke individual, you know, perfect or anything, but again, just listening to folks and trying to understand them, and don't be afraid. I've got a couple that I kind of picture. They learn things on their own. They listen to their children. You know, they keep very well in tune with what's going on with them and her friends as well. There's nothing wrong with a name. If somebody wants to be called a specific name, call them that. You don't have to use incorrect English. You just give an attempt and an effort to understand their lives. In the workplace, everybody in the world probably either works for, with, or supervises somebody of the community. The only thing that they have to do is understand that they're the same. Their problems and needs are the same.
Thank you, Paul. This is Paul Dye with the Cabaret. Thank you, Damien.